Hello everybody and welcome to this ForNAV webinar about check reports with the MICR fund and label reports. I'm Jan Sillerman, and before we get started I just have a few housekeeping things to mention here. So you're all muted. There's not a real lot you can do about that. But the good thing is that the questions are of course more than welcome. And if you have any, please put them into the questionnaire tool in GoToWebinar, and then we will take them as we go along if we believe they are relevant at that point. Alternatively, we will take them at the end of the webinar. And this webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be available on the ForNAV YouTube channel. So with that, I'd like to hand over to today's speaker, and that is Mark Brummel. So Mark, please take it away.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Jan, for the introduction. Waiting for the show my screen to show up. Yeah, okay, thank you. So hello everyone and welcome. I don't know if it's a good afternoon or a good morning for you, so I say good day. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Mark Brummel, and today we're going to talk about MICR fonts, direct printing, barcodes and labels, and we're going to do that in Business Central and targeted for the cloud. Our biggest goal at ForNAV is to make Microsoft more successful, and in order to help them to be that, we're focusing on things that are extremely hard or sometimes impossible to do in Business Central, which is the case with these topics at the moment. So if we look at the agenda, the first thing we're going to talk about is MICR fonts and how we make your life easy if you're in North America and you want to print checks. Then we will switch to labels, another topic which is time consuming and hard to do, especially if you add barcodes to that. And then we'll go into direct printing. I'll demo direct printing with labels, not because it's only possible with labels, but we think that direct printing has the best business case with labels, because you don't want people in the warehouse to save labels to a PDF file before sending them to a printer. You want that to be a seamless experience. And of course, at the end, we take questions. You have the question window in the GoToWebinar menu. If you have an urgent question or you think it's important to interrupt, please type in your question in the question window, and Jan will moderate that window. And if he thinks it's important enough to break me up, then he will do that. And otherwise, we will put it at the end of the webinar. Jan told me that a lot of the people that are joining this webinar today are new to ForNAV, or at least this is your first ForNAV webinar. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the product. We support all versions of Microsoft Dynamics NAV and Business Central that support RDLC. So we support on-premise and we support extensions, even though this webinar right now is targeted purely at Microsoft Cloud with extensions. Doesn't mean that you can't use it on-prem, though. That works just fine as well. So let's take it away and let's start with MICR fonts. MICR fonts is still a big thing in North America where they print checks. And if you know what a check looks like, basically it's the printed number in the bottom of the check that allows banks to recognize the bank account number, the amount, etc., when they receive the checks. And there's a really good movie made with Leonardo DiCaprio that you should really watch if you want to know more about MICR fonts and how important they are in North America. We try to make check printing as easy as possible, and in order to do that, we have done much more than just implementing MICR fonts. We ship the product together with an easy-to-use check report. And that check report allows you to print the MICR with check number, bank routing number, and bank account number. But if you want, you can also add the amount. We will automatically print the separator characters, A, B, C, or D, for those of you who are really familiar with MICR. But if you think we are completely wrong, or you need a different encoding in your MICR, of course you can create a per tenant extension and subscribe to an event and override whatever we are doing if you think that's what you need. On top of that, we also support one layout for all check options. So the most popular options are stop, check, stop, and check, stop, stop, where you have 2 stops and 1 check. You keep 1 stop for yourself, and the other one you send to your relation. But it's also possible to print 3 checks or to have bigger stops, and it's even possible, if you want to print the extended stops on white paper. We have one customer that has so many payments with one vendor that it's a bit of a waste to use check paper for that, and we changed the check layout to print the stop lines on white paper to save that expensive check money. Another thing which is important, especially in the cloud these days, is to be able to print your company logos and to print signatures. Out of the box, we support that with vectorized logos. So that means that it's not important how big or small you print your signature or your company logo. It will always be sharp. And you can write some business logic or setup if a check is higher than a certain amount that you want a second signature to be added to the check. As said, you can download, you can use checks signatures from the website, and I've just downloaded a random signature from the internet to see what we can do with that. So let's go into ForNAV and see how easy it is to do the setup. Because we have a lot of ground to cover today, I have already installed our extension from AppSource. So if I go to Setup and Extensions, you will see that the ForNAV extension has already been installed. We are working with Business Central Wave 2. This is a sandbox environment, and I have created the sandbox with the North American localization, even though you can also print MICR checks with Danish or Dutch localizations, as long as you have a payment journal. If we go to assisted setup, we can also see that the ForNAV setup has been completed. So everything has been set up. If you want to see how that's done, you can go to our YouTube channel, and there we will show you how easy it is to do the ForNAV setup. And now I can just search for the ForNAV check setup. And here you see the options that I just showed you in the PowerPoint. And one of the things that we think makes it easy to work with ForNAV checks is that you can directly test the template from the setup. You can execute a test print without having to create a pre-payment journal with dummy data. And if you do a test print and then do a preview, then it doesn't work because Murphy is here with me. But if you print the report, now it's really playing with me. Let's go to the payment journal. I think I know what's wrong. I have to populate the bank account number. Yeah, so now you can see that we print access, and this allows you very easily to set up the check, to move things from left to right without having to create dummy prepayment information. So As you can see with the first test, the MICR font is a little bit off. The MICR font doesn't show exactly in the white space area. So let's see if we can fix that in an easy way without having to create our own extension and clone reports and what have you. So again, I'm going to go into my check report, and instead of doing the test print, I'm going to select design. And from the web client, this immediately takes me into the designer. The designer is asking me for authentication. So I'm going to do that. Oh. So while it's loading the report, what you're going to see when this is done is that even though we print stop, check, stop, in the report you only see the check and the stop once. And depending on the setup, we basically juggle the sections around and we print the check and the stop where you want it to have printed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply move the MICR to where I want it to be. You can see that we break the MICR up into MICR line 1, MICR line 2, and MICR line 3. This is to make positioning easier. If you find it easier to work with one MICR string, that also exists in the data set. So if I go into my data set, you will see that the MICR line in one string is there as well. We just want to make it as easy for you as possible to do this. So let's save the layout and then go back to printing the check. And in this case, we're going to print the real thing. We're not going to do a print test print, but we're going to reprint because I tried this already a couple of times. And I'm going to send this to a PDF document. And then let's see what we get. And if I open the check document, you can now see that the MICR has moved right into the white box. It's printing the amount, $2,071.13. It prints the separator characters, it prints the check number, and it prints the bank number and routing number. Let's go back to PowerPoint. Let's close this one. Let's go back to the presentation. So in order to do this, after you have installed the ForNAV app from AppSource, you have to download the ForNAV designer from our website. If you go to fornav.com/download, you can download the latest builds from the designer. You click on design when you start the report, just like I did, drag and drop controls, and then preview and save changes when you're happy. You can just do that as many times as you want until you think that you have done what you want to do. So I've already done the demo, so I'm going to skip this. And I think I proved that this is just super easy to do. And on top of that, you also get more things that make life easier, because the changed report that I have just created is stored in the custom report layouts. And let's see where we can find that in Business Central. If I go to custom report layouts, you can see that the check report here now has a custom build that I just created in my sandbox. You can also see when it was created. This is 1 hour time difference probably between me and the service tier. We strongly recommend to design reports in a sandbox. It doesn't mean that you cannot change reports in production, but you never want to change a report while people are actually printing in your system. You can export the layout from the custom report layouts when you're happy. We always recommend to save a backup, put it on SharePoint, put it on OneDrive, put it on GitHub, wherever you want it to be. And after a while, you will probably get a library of custom report layouts that you can reuse. If you have a certain bank and a certain kind of check printer, you will probably see that after a while you get a list of custom report layouts, and you can just cherry pick from your custom report layouts and start using from that, and even be faster implementing checks for your customers. So to recap, you get one check report for all check variations. So that means that if you want to switch between check variations, you can simply do that in the setup, and all your customizations will be kept. This even works for custom report layouts. So if you have one customer that uses check stop stop and the other one uses stop check check, but they have the same bank, you can use the template from one customer and apply it to the next and just change the layout in the setup. We've built in the MICR for you, and we have done the algorithm, so there's no worries to do about that. We have up to 2 signatures, company logo and watermark. Most people use the watermark just for the company logo. In my demo, I'm using it to make the demo look really nice, but most people use pre-printed paper where the check is already pre-printed by your printing company. It supports per tenant modifications. You can have different layouts per company, per tenant. All of that is possible, and it's very easy to test and share. If you want to test it yourself, you don't have to buy a license. You can just download the app from AppSource. You can print the checks. All we do in the test environment is we print a watermark. If you don't mind having a watermark on your checks, then the product is for free. And if you think that having a watermark on your check is not that professional, please send us an email and then we'll license you for the product.
So Mark, we have a couple of questions regarding check that I think we should take right now.
Yeah, because before we move into labels, let's do that.
Exactly. So the first one is whether we add checkbooks. Well, the question is, will ForNAV add functionality per checkbook? The reason US customers typically have MICR is that they don't want to keep pre-printed check stocks for many checkbooks. So first part of that answer is, of course, that we can print on pre-printed checks with or without MICR, or we can print on entirely blank paper if needed.
Yes.
Then the follow-up question is, if the customer has 2 or more bank accounts, how do we handle that?
Yes. So we take the bank account from the payment journal. I know that there are add-ons that you can have from AppSource, and those add-ons allow you to have one payment journal with multiple bank accounts. You can also set up multiple payment journals with multiple bank accounts. And if all of those options don't work for you, if you go into the ForNAV designer, let me go there. Let me go to Business Central and design the check report. You can customize the check in any way you want. In this case, right here, we are printing MICR line 3, but I can go here to the source expression and I can do all kinds of crazy things. I can hard code my bank account number, which you shouldn't do. But what I can do, for example, is I can go into records and I can add a record here from Business Central. I can add a reference to a bank account, which is 270, I think, bank account, yeah. So I can add the bank account from ForNAV into my data set. Doing this will add a bank account right here. And what I can do now is I can go into my journal line data item, And here I can actually start writing AL code directly into ForNAV. And I can actually say that I have a bank account, and I can say a bank account.get. And I can actually read a different bank account from the database directly from ForNAV based on any business criteria that I want. So out of the box, we support a number of scenarios. We work together with a couple of other apps from AppSource. And if that really doesn't work for you, we have a really good extendable model that allows you to do pretty much anything you want.
Good. We have another question here. Can you show how to add a signature and set dollar level?
Yeah, so that's also done using JavaScript. So I just closed the designer, but I think you got the picture with the previous demo that I did. Is you can actually drag in the second signature also from the data source, and you can write in the show output property. You can write JavaScript that says show output if amount larger than $1,000, which is fairly easy. We've chosen to do that in JavaScript right now, which is a very easy customization. We did that because we want the out-of-the-box check report to be as simple as possible. And we think that the second signature is not used that often. So we try to make the report as comfortable as possible for the majority. Should we learn in the next 12 or 18 months that this is not the case, we may add it out of the box. But simplicity is very important for us. So that's why we chose to do JavaScript for that right now.
And then one more before we move on. How can I know if the MICR font is on the right place? The bank is going to scan the code, but how do we make sure the MICR font is on the right place?
Yeah, so probably your customer is migrating from an old product. So you know what checks the bank currently accepts. So my advice would be to just print both, walk to the window of your office, put it against the sun and see if they exactly line up. That's the shortcut. The official answer is that I know that in North America there are procedures that you can have your check certified. But most of the times, if you just make sure that the check is printed exactly the way you did it before, then the banks will just accept it. I mean, they don't know that it's printed from another piece of software.
Good. And I got a message that my microphone is buzzing, so why don't we just move on with you, Mark?
I heard it was buzzing when we started the webinar. I should have said that. Good. Let's switch to labels. Labels come with some challenges that are unique to labels that we don't have when we print invoices or checks or packing slips. Labels often have the strangest paper formats. There are a lot of standard sizes for labels these days, but still everything can be different. Labels can be on sheets. Labels can be continuous with a slider with a knife inside the label machine, or they can be pre-cut. So all of that needs to be supported. Labels, of course, almost always have barcodes, especially if you use them on a shop floor. If you are meat packaging or shipping company, warehouse. Everything these days has labels for easy scanning, and of course with labels, direct printing is super important. So we support direct printing not only with labels, but business case is very strong when you have a shop floor. So out of the box, if you install ForNAV from AppSource, we give you a couple of label options. The first one is just a very simple label that we connect to any master data in Business Central. And the reason we provide those simple labels is that with Business Central, it's easier to create a custom report layout than to create a layout from scratch. Creating a layout from scratch with ForNAV is also easy, but it requires you to have a permanent extension. And if you make a custom report layout on the labels that we ship out of the box, we can just guarantee that the upgrade will always be seamless. And if you go from one version to the next, your reports will just always work, and you don't have to worry about refactoring or Microsoft changing anything in the base application. We also have label sheets, and we try to make the label sheets as generic as possible. I'll tell a little bit more about that in the demo. But we try to pick up data from any extension that you have installed, as long as they support a certain data format in Business Central. And the last one is the complex label. This is where we ship to Zebra printers from sales shipments and production orders. And this is where we provide a complex label with barcodes, barcodes horizontal, vertical, etc., etc., with a clear API that you can extend if you want that same label to be used in other places. And I'm going to do that in the demo as well. So the first one is a simple label, and it's connected to all of the master data in Business Central. And we decided to optimize those labels for the Brother QL800 label printer. This is a really popular label printer. It's a thermic printer. You can buy it for $100. And we think that this label printer can be a really easy to buy printer for people that want to use labels to stick them to envelopes, for example. So if you just buy that printer from Amazon and you connect it to your Business Central, you can use those from ForNAV out of the box. The width of the label is 62 millimeters, and we set it up to cut the label exactly at the right place. They are very easy to clone or to enhance. You can just create your own copy, which is also what I did in the demo. And I think it's also very important what we build in is that we warn you against forgetting filters. This is something that I stumbled into myself. These thermic printers are typically pretty cheap to buy. This one is $100, but the paper is more expensive. It's thermal label paper. So if you by accident print a label for all of your customers in the database, you're wasting a lot of money. So basically what we do is if you try to print a label and you print more than 10 labels at a time, we give you a warning and say, okay, do you really want to print this many labels, or was this a mistake? And if you have a business case where this is bullshit or not that nice, you can actually disable the warning and it will not show up again. This is just to prevent you from making mistakes. Again, this is just an example. You can go ahead and change it, and it's fairly easy to make customizations to that. The second one is where you have the case with label sheets. Label sheets is where you buy A4 or letter size pieces of paper where there are, for example, 24 labels on a sheet, divided with 3 labels on per row and 8 rows. And we basically create a report that you can reuse that can print anything between 12 and 9 labels per row. And you can easily add anything to that to that single report. So let me show you where that is. After you have installed ForNAV from AppSource, you will get a link in your rule center that takes you to the standard reports that we ship with the ForNAV product. And the one that we're looking for right now is the label sheet. And if I run this report, by default, it will try to print items, and it will tell me that I want to print 2 labels per item. And if I preview this, I get a filtering option for items. And then I get my labels, and this is a demo database, so there are not that many items, but this is what I get right now. But I can also change it, and I can say, okay, I want a different table name. And what we do if you select the table names is that we actually go into the Business Central database and we scan all of your metadata. And this sounds scary, but it's not scary. We scan your metadata for all of the tables that are possible candidates for label sheets. And we also do that with installed extensions. So if you have an installed extension that has master data that looks like the customer table or that looks like the item table, it will automatically pick up those changes and allow you to print label sheets. So right now I can easily switch to the customer. It will now show a filter for the customer table, and it will now print 5 labels on a row. If I design this report, you will see that out of the box, I have different sections for different number of labels that I want to have printed. And we simply use the JavaScript to say, okay, this is the section that I want to print. And we have a field list that has the fields of our intermediate table. And let's say that you're completely happy with this, but you want this to print for items, and you have a specific field in the item table that you want to have printed, and you want to always have 3 labels per row, because this is what you use in your warehouse for your bins. Then basically what you can do is you can go again into the record collection. You can add the item table, and you simply add the item table 3 times. And this will add the item table also 3 times to your data sheet. Now you can actually say, okay, let's write some JavaScript that will actually get the item table also 3 times based on the data from my label sheet. And now you can actually customize it and say, okay, I want this to be done for all 3 items. And now you can take any field from the item table and put that on your label. Or you can even say, okay, if the item table has a field relation with another table, we automatically bring in those field relations. And you can even print location description, lot number description, manufacturing names, anything that you normally would have to write AL code for in a per tenant extension. We just allow you to do that from a custom report layout that you can then design in your sandbox and move to production whenever you want to. Simplicity, that's basically what always wins. So shipping and production labels, these are the most complex ones that we ship out of the box with the product. You can see that we put the barcode on the label. Can be any barcode that we ship with the product. And you can put them horizontal or vertical. Vertical is very popular these days with shipping companies. So the package doesn't have to be turned in order to scan the barcode. Out of the box, we support sales shipments and production orders. But in the demo, I'm going to show you how to connect it, for example, to sales return orders. You can connect it to any entity in Business Central, even if it's an extension from a third party, as long as there is some kind of mapping that respects the API that we have built. It can be based on a header or a row. So in case of a sales shipment, you can say that you want to print a label for the entire sales shipment and everything will always be in one box. Or you can say, okay, I want every sales shipment row to have its own label. Or you can even say that if a sales shipment line has a quantity of 9, I want to have 9 labels and they are labeled 1 of 9, 2 of 9, 3 of 9, etc., etc. All of that is built into the system out of the box. We provide portrait or landscape. Both of them are optimized for Zebra printers. So we tested this at a customer with Zebra printers, and they printed 100,000 labels using ForNAV without any issues. And this has an extendable API, and I will show you that in the demo. We also have item price tags. This is a little bit different. This is kind of a mixture between the master data labels and the zebra labels. They are still very simple labels to use, and they are basically just shown for you as inspiration to say, okay, all of the things you can do with ForNav. This is just one example to give you inspiration and to get creative with our products. Again, the price tag is optimized for the brother. So if you have a customer that has a shop and the customer wants to print price tags, just give him the brother printer for free as a gift. It's only $100. He'll be happy and he can start using ForNav just out of the box. So let's dive into direct printing, because I'm actually guessing a lot of you came to see that in the webinar today and see how we can do that and how that works together with barcodes. So out of the box, the supported barcodes is this list, and we think it's a complete list. In the years that we exist as a company, we never had a customer saying that we not support one of the barcodes. And this is actually a subset of the barcodes that we support, because the GS 128 has a whole bunch of subcategories that you can set up from ForNav. You can find this list of supported barcodes on our website. And here I'm going to challenge you to pick up your phone, because if you take your phone and you scan the barcode that I have here on my slide, it will actually give you the URL to the website of ForNav, where you can find this list of supported barcode, of which, of course, from a nerdy perspective, the QR code is always the one that's most popular because of its mystery with the blocks. So how do you get started with this? The ForNAV extension that you download from AppSource is actually open code. You can download our report pack from AppSource from Business Central, and you can customize our reports from Visual Studio Code. There is a little bit of a story behind direct printing. Direct printing is a very hot topic, and a lot of customers were asking us to do this. And we support direct printing since the 5.0 release. But the guys who are doing our back office system worked on it while I was doing the ForNav 5.0 report pack. And right before we wanted to ship ForNav 5.0 for Wave 2, we found out that there was an issue in Business Central, that in Business Central, if you try to put in a printer in the printer table, it gives you an error message that the printer does not exist. And the reason it gives you an error is because the service tier doesn't know this printer, which is probably correct because the service tier is hosted by Microsoft. So the direct printing with ForNav 5.0 for Business Central Wave 2 works with creating your own per tenant extension. In the next release, we will support direct printing out of the box without any customization. But today I'm going to show you the nerdy stuff. I'm going to show you how to do that with some AL code. So you need access to our code, and there's a couple of ways to do that. The first thing is pretty cool, is that with ForNav you can actually download any extension that you have in Business Central. So in Business Central, if you go to the extension list, you will actually find out that Microsoft does not allow you to download the source code of an extension if it's an extension from AppSource. We do. So if you go into ForNav, you can actually connect your ForNav designer to a sandbox or production using the bearer token of the authentication. And basically you can then say, okay, I want to download any extension. And the only requirement is that the partner sets the show my code to true. So any extension in AppSource that has show my code set to true, you can download directly from the ForNav designer. And of course, we are looking for the customizable report pack, because the customizable report pack is the code that we need to start using to do direct printing. The second one is that you have to create a new ForNav extension. The extension needs to have a dependency on our report pack. I'll show you that in a minute, but basically you can do that also directly from ForNAV. You don't have to do that in Visual Studio Code. And the advantage of doing that in ForNAV is that we immediately set all your dependencies. So that's a great advantage if you do that. If you create a ForNAV extension for on-prem, we will also include the DLL that you need for printing, but that's not important for cloud. You can also download the report pack from the gallery. In the ForNAV Designer, if you select a new report, you get a link to the gallery. And here you can create a new report from the template, but you can also download the ForNAV report pack. This will give you a zip file. You can download, unzip it, and get creative. So this is a second way to get your hands on our source code. And the last option is to cherry pick and clone. So let's say that you want to create your own sales invoice or your own label or your own trial balance. Basically what you do is you select open and then report from server. Then you get a list of all the reports that you have in the database, including RDLC reports. And you can just basically say, okay, I like the ForNAV trial balance, but I want to do something with that, which requires me to change the AL dataset, and then you can create your own version of the ForNAV trial balance. It automatically finds a free object ID, so it doesn't stupidly start at 50,000. It just actually goes into your sandbox and it tries to find the first object ID which is available in your database. You may have noticed that I'm not demoing this, and this is because in the next webinar I will deep dive into how to work with that. That's on November 28th. If you're in Europe, that'll be at 10 a.m. or 4 p.m. And if you're in North America, if you're EST, it's 10 a.m. If it's CST, it's 9. If it's PST, you have to get up early. And if getting up early is something that you do and you're in New York, you can also get up at 4 a.m. and start listening to me with a fresh cup of coffee. So let's dive into this with the demo, because I have actually some cool stuff that I have prepared for you with the direct printing. All of the code that I'm going to show you right now is available on GitHub. If you go to github.com/reports4nav/label and direct print demo, you will find the code that I'm going to use. It has 4 branches. Master, which is a clean ForNAV extension. And then we have step 1, 2, and 3, where we get into a more complex scenarios, ending up with a direct printing demo. So let me go to Visual Studio Code. And here I have a connection to the GitHub repository. On the left bottom, you can see that I'm in the master branch. And that means that I have a blank extension. I only have an app.json file. If you want to really do this in production, not in a sandbox, you have to create your own GUID. Microsoft does not allow per tenant extensions to have the same GUID. So simply go into a GUID generator online and create your own GUID. Change the name into something that you like. Change the publisher in your own name if that's what you think is important. But what's most important here is the dependencies. Of course, we need a dependency on Microsoft. We need a dependency on system and base app. And we need the dependency on ForNAV core and on the customizable report pack. So that's basically step number 1. And once that is done, you can download the AL packages, and you will see that we actually have 5 app files that we start depending on. So the first thing I want to show you is what if I have a return order and customer wants to return something to me and I want to send the customer a label. So I want to be friendly and say, okay, dear customer, you want to return your refrigerator or your washing machine, and I'm going to send you a label to return the washing machine to me. In order to do that, you have to connect the label to the sales return order. Out of the box, as I said, we support printing labels from sales shipments and production orders. So we need to create that connection, and we also need to create an event. So in this extension, I have two objects. I have a report called return receipt label, and this report is actually a processing only report. The only thing that this report is doing is it's creating the mapping between the page and the label report. It does that by showing an arguments table that allows me to set popular filters for my label, and it has the sales header table, and the sales header table is the table that Microsoft is using for the sales return order. In the on after get record, I'm simply calling into print label, which is a function in my report, and in that function print label, I'm calling into the ForNAV extension. Because the ForNAV extension is open source, it's open code, so you can actually go into our code and you can see how we have defined the label report. So this is the procedure internally that we use for create labels, and you can see that the parameter for that function is a variant. And this basically means that it takes any record from the database and converts it into a record reference. And after it has converted your table into a record reference, it's going to use some reflection to see, can I find a header table? Can I find a line table? If it cannot find a line table, it says, okay, well, if there's no lines, it's probably master data. So I'm going to just skip the lines and work with the line table. The label report itself works on its own table. We can actually see that if we go into an extension, which is called the AL Object Designer. Here we can actually see that in our extension, we have the ForNAV label object. And this is the table, and this table is actually the source table of your label. It tries to find fields that have similar names and similar data types. And this is an extendable model. I'll show you that in a minute. So the next step is to subscribe to an event. I have created a code unit, and this subscribes to releasing a sales document. I'm quickly checking here if it's a return order. If it's not a return order, I'm doing nothing. If it's not a return order, if it's a return order, I'm going to print the label. So let's see what that looks like. Let's go into Business Central. And let's go to sales and go into sales return orders. If I decide to release this, of course this is already released because I was testing for this webinar. Now it will automatically show me the report, or at least, oh no, I haven't published my extension, I'm sorry. Extension is not published. Should publish the extension, of course. Okay, so that worked. So now let's open the page again. Reopen and release. So now I get my sales return label, and I can preview my label. I'm not doing the direct print just yet. And now I can see that I'm actually printing the label. So let's make this a little bit more complicated. Of course, we want to change the barcode into something else, but we also want to say, okay, maybe we have a return reason. Maybe we want to know why is this returned, and we want to print that return reason on the label. So I'm going to switch to step number 2. And in step number 2, I have made the extension a little bit more complicated. I have created a sales line table extension where I have created a new field called foobar. I have added that field to the page, so I can set the foobar in my page, and I have also added that field to my label, right, foobar. So let's publish this extension again and see if anything changes. Yep, so let's open the sales return order again. So now we have foobar. Going to say, okay, the reason I'm returning this stuff is because of Mark, he broke it. And I'm going to reopen it, and I'm going to release it. And now I'm going to design my report. You will see that ForNAV has automatically picked up the table extension. If you design the report, we automatically scan your database, and we recognize that you have an extension that extends the label table. So I'm going to put this into my field groups. So now this is saying foobar, and I'm going to change the barcode into something else. I have no idea what. Let's change it into this. I hope that works. Let's change this one into this. I have no idea if that will work. And save it and try it again. Reopen, release. And let's see what this looks like. And you see that it actually prints the return reason or the foobar field, and it actually prints this label. And I have probably chosen a barcode that only accepts integer values. So it says there are invalid characters to print in my barcode. So that's why I'm doing demos instead of implementations, I guess. We are going towards the top of the hour, so of course you want to see how the direct printing is done. So for that, I'm going to go into step number 3. With step number 3, I'm going back to a little bit of a more simple implementation. I actually have to go back to another. See that there is a little bug here in the extension. So here I have my code unit. Where's my code unit? My code unit is here. And here I have different line of code. I'm not doing a report.run, but I'm actually doing a report.print. So let me remove this stuff here. Microsoft supports report.print, and in the report.print you can set a printer name. And if you run a ForNAV report, and this has to be a ForNAV report, and you set this to be a printer name and you give it a record reference parameter, then it will actually do a direct print. I can publish this extension. Of course, I can do that. It's not rocket science to publish this extension, but it's going to be a little bit hard to demo this to you, nice folks, because of course I can now go into my return order and I can actually reopen and I can release it. And now it's going to print something on my system. It's actually not going to do that because I have switched my label printer off. So in order to show you how this is done and that no tricks are in my sleeve, I'm going to give you a video recording that I did with my phone yesterday. So this is the same code that you just saw in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to publish this again to my sandbox. It's exactly the same data. I recorded this yesterday or the day before. I'm going to release the order and then switch to my Brother label printer. You can see my wonderful English desk. And then there we go. Without any user interference, it's printing and thanking you for joining the webinar. So with that, Jan, we're on the top of the hour. Let's see if we have any questions.
We do. So how's my microphone doing?
Same buzz, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'll fix that afterwards. So when printing multiple labels, X copies, are multiple files sent or single file with instructions to print X copies?
Both is possible. So basically, it's basically how you code it. If you code it in such a way that it generates one big file with multiple labels, it will send that to the printer. But if you code every label to be a single call to the report.print, it will send multiple files. It's probably faster from a performance perspective to send as many as you can in one go, and the API supports printing multiple labels in one batch. So the data going back and forth is more performant.
Okay. In regard to check printing, is it possible to print batches?
Yep.
That's an easy one. Is there security permissions to prevent end users to go into design mode?
Yes, the answer was I don't know what else to say to that.
Yeah. And that's a yes too, of course. Does ForNAV allow printing attached incoming documents as well? Yes, you can append, you can pre-print PDF files. So yeah.
We actually have that out of the box, so you can actually append and prepend PDF files to existing reports, label reports.
And then we had a question earlier that I answered to everybody in writing, but that was about how to get access to the designer. And I think you also mentioned it, Mark, fornav.com/download, as it says here.
It's here on my screen, and I can actually show it here in.
And the designer is free to use. Basically, the way we model our licensing is that when you want to print the report, you need a license to remove the watermark that we put on all reports. So it's very easy to get started.
Or you buy a little or you buy slightly bigger paper and give your customers a scissor.
One more here. Direct printing is only working thanks to the ForNAV designer? Question mark.
Yep. Cool, isn't it?
Yeah. So with that, we have reached the top of the hour. So let me say thank you to you, Mark. And
thank you.
If you have any questions, please just ping us and we'll come back to you. And like Mark said, next webinar is November 28, and we will, of course, send out invitations to that. So thank you for joining and have a good day.
Bye.